pleas or location or just in general they were uninterested in the program. They kind of applied, learned about it, and then were uninterested. So that's a really good ratio there, I think. Currently, we have 14 people in screening. 13 of those people already have assessments scheduled, waiting to hear back from one. So we move pretty quickly. I get the applications, and within a few days, they're scheduled with me, and then within a few days of that, they know if they're eligible. So it moves very quick. Active participants right now is sitting at 27. We have 27 people who have graduated. So graduation is looking between 30 and 45 days, so that 4 to 6 week range. And then some of the other charges we are looking at a little longer, depending on what kind of resources they need to be plugged into for success. We have 2 more graduating within the week, so we're moving pretty fast. Other than that, I am just here to answer any general questions that you all may have.
I'll also jump in really quick, sorry. Just to identify, our goal coming in for our first year was to serve 20 participants. And so we have already had obviously way more than that. And so that's also part of Vic being able to get people in quickly. We get them assessed, plugged into resources, and go from there. So just throwing that out there, we're rocking it. I'm very proud to say.
Council members, any questions? Councilor Gabriel, please.
Thank you. Could you walk us through the graduation process?
Sure. So it kind of depends on the participant. So the assessment that I do with them is how we decide what needs that they have. If it is let's say a lower level charge, it's that 30 to 45 days. Graduation, what that looks like is they meet all of their requirements. Either they hit that 30 days after meeting those requirements, or they hit 30 days and they're still kind of working on those requirements. So kind of whatever happens last is how I explain that.
Requirements set by whom?
By me and our team. Yep, internally.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. And it's again, it's based off that assessment. So everybody is different. It's based off the charge, based off their needs, based off their scores, and all of that kind of together. Treatment, if they need treatment, things like that. Whatever happens last, so either they hit that 30 days or they hit all of the requirements, I send an email to the team that needs to know. So if it's municipal court, I send it to all of the municipal court team that needs to know. I say, hello, they have completed all of their requirements successfully. I'm closing their case on my end. And depending on when that email gets sent, the dismissal happens day of or the next day. It's pretty quick once that email is sent. Of course, if there's any questions about things, I have that communication with the prosecutor and all of that as well. So it's very open communication to get to that graduation point.
Great, thank you.
Of course.
Thank you, Councilor. Other questions? Councilor Richardson, please.
Thank you. I have just a few.
Sure.
One of my questions is, are there enough mental health providers for that number of folks who are coming in?
So not all of our participants go through mental health recommendations, but yes, short answer is yes. We have contracts with, I believe, 3 mental health providers in town, and they all have different things that they can focus on, so we kind of, some participants get the choice, and then other participants, we kind of help make that choice depending on what their needs are. As of right now, we have not run into any issues with capacity.
We, just to follow up on that a little bit, we look at and work with the participant directly if they currently don't have insurance. We will talk with them about VOA as one of our contracted providers. They're on a sliding fee scale, and so if services continue after, that could be something that would be beneficial in the long run versus a different provider that doesn't offer that. So we offer all 3 of our contracted providers to everybody, and then depending on how that benefits the participant better, what would be a better fit, then they are allowed to check.
Mm-hmm. I don't know if other people have questions. I have one more unrelated. Okay. So my memory is a little foggy on this. I know at one point during the conversation when we first started talking about this program, and we were looking at eligibility versus ineligibility and location, I believe we talked about if there were an opportunity for folks to not serve their, or serve out kind of this program locally, but could do it over Zoom, it was a possibility. Is that right? Because you had mentioned some people were ineligible because of location. Or is that something that I would have liked and I'm now making it up?
No,
Okay.
it was definitely something that we talked about
Okay.
and seeing what the population would look like. We have had, I think the people that have applied that didn't end up being here, it was 2 or 3.
We had a couple in Colorado and a couple, I think, up in Casper, or 2 up in Casper, 1 up in Casper. So very far.
Yeah, and so we have not at this point gone to that yet. It's still something that we could consider in the future. We've had enough referrals to stay busy here and plug into resources here. So definitely not out of the realm and something that we'd consider. Yeah.
May I add, I would say too, I think that one thing that we've run into is obviously students. We get a lot of concern from the students about living in Laramie and living in Albany County. And one thing that we explain is, they can travel home for the holidays. They can go to Christmas break and still be part of the program as long as they're actively doing what they need to do. And for a lot of them, it's online courses, and they are able to do that when they're away. Or in some situations, if we need to wait a little bit or whatever we need to do, we work with them on that. So haven't had anybody over Zoom yet, but we have had a few people that we've had to kind of juggle things because of that location. Of course.
Thank you, Counselor. Other questions? I was curious about capacity. We had a conversation about capacity regarding, sort of the 20 cases per year, and you said 67, I think. So does that put you on par for maybe like 80 to 90 cases in a one full calendar year? Not a calendar year, but a March to March year.
Potentially even more, yeah. Our anticipation, I would think that we would be able to balance about 60 to 70 active participants at a time. With the curriculum that we have with the online, as well as our partners with the treatment agencies here, things have gone pretty smooth. Of course, I'm expecting bumps in the road at some point, but I would anticipate that. And so I do think that by the time March rolls around, we will probably be pretty close to about 100.
Wow. And I asked that question because I really value the work you're doing. And I mean, the stories you shared, and I think we all, know stories in this world. Those are meaningful, right? Like there's a physician that will likely end up in Fremont County, and we all know the sort of issues with recruiting doctors to rural Wyoming. And so it's meaningful work that you all are doing. So I want to ensure that it's sustainable.
Absolutely.
I won't be on the council when you come back for this, but if it's not, come back to the council, right? I think I'm going to speak for all these guys instead and just say I think there's a value to what you are all doing that is hard to ignore.
Thank you.
And so I want to ensure that it's sustainable and long lasting.
Thank you very much. We appreciate your guys' support so much, and very much so. I think that we have a lot of room to grow and to help. Next time we come back, we'll be able to bring numbers on what it looks, how much we have saved the community in fines and fees versus, those kind of things that they're able to keep and go from there. So thank you.
No, thank you. I thank both for the work you do. And Vic, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too, Mayor.
Anything else, council members? Anything you want to add, City Attorney?
I do, Mayor. This is money well spent by the council. It's a professional operation, and it's been working very, very smoothly. It sounded good in theory. It's even better in practice.
Really glad to hear that. Thank you. All right.
Thank you.
Well, thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. We will move on then to item 12. And I'm going to recognize Councilor Newman for item 12.
I move to approve the application for a new bar and grill liquor license number BG17 for Hambones Pizza LLC, doing business as Hambones Pizza, located at 2405 East Grand Avenue, Suite C, D, and E, Laramie, Wyoming, for the licensing term November 7th, 2024 through May 7th, 2025, and authorize the mayor and city clerk to sign.
Second?
Motion by Newman, second by Gabriel. Mr. Clerk.
Thank you, Mayor. The application before you tonight is for Hambones Pizza LLC. We received the application on October 1st. They have secured a lease in Suite E, which is the location for the dispensing area. They're currently working on the remodel of that area to accommodate that. However, they would be licensed in C, D, and E, so their whole facility would have the liquor license. We have had conversations with them about the 60-40 food versus alcohol sales. They are aware that they can only have 40% of their sales in alcohol, but they're not concerned about that since they're established already as, a pizza place. So they're excited and ready to get started. The license would take effect starting tomorrow. However, they do have to finish construction before they can have occupancy in that suite. So it will probably be a little while before they actually start operation. But we do have Garrett, our applicant here, along with his wife Angela. So if you have any questions, they're happy to answer them.
Thank you, City Clerk, and thank you both for being here. Councilors, any questions? All right. We will turn this item over to the public if there's any member. I should invite you all. If you do want to say something, you're more than welcome to come up. No requirement to speak. Okay. Just realized I ought to at least give you a chance. All right, we'll turn it over to the public. If there's a member of the public wishing to speak to this item, raise your hand on the Zoom call or come forward in the room, please. All right, seeing no public comment, we'll close that back to the council for the vote. Okay, City Clerk, please call the roll.
Newman.
Yes.
O'Doherty.
Yes.
Somerville, absent. Shumway.
Yes.
Richardson.
Yes.
Pierce.
Yes.
Gabriel.
Yes?
Cumby.
Yes.
Harrington.
Yes.
That's 8 yeses, 0 nos, and 1 absent, Your Honor.
Thank you, City Clerk. That item has been approved. Garrett, Angela, good luck.
Thank you.
All right, item 13, Councilmember O'Doherty.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move to award the bid for the replacement of Unit 664 pickup truck with trade-in to Ken Garford, Cheyenne, Wyoming, in an amount not to exceed $57,548.00, and authorize the mayor and city clerk to sign. Second.
Motion by Doherty, seconded by Cumby. Director Webb.
Honorable Mayor, City Council, we'll see if we can get Councilor Doherty choked up again here.
It's probably happening already.
So based on City Council's emission reduction and carbon neutrality goals, our fleet division began specifying equipment with emission-reducing technologies, hybrid, electric vehicle, and idle reduction technology. Excuse me. Since then, we've added 10 hybrids to the fleet, and just about everything else has the idle reduction technology on it. We had not to date received a bid for an electric vehicle, but guess what? We did now. So Unit 664 is currently in the Solid Waste Division. It is a gas-powered Ram 1500. Used primarily by the Solid Waste Administration, so JR, the Solid Waste Division Manager, and our Recycling and Diversion Coordinator will primarily use this vehicle. So it's actually fairly light use. They're not pulling trailers and hauling heavy weight. They're pretty light use. JR wanted to be the first electric vehicle awarded, but unfortunately, there was one on consent that you already awarded to Mosquito. Sorry, JR. But anyway, to align with council goals and objectives, staff's recommending the award to Ken Garf for a fully electric Ford F-150 Lightning pickup truck. I'll take questions if you have them.
Thank you.
Do actually have one.
Please, Councilor Richardson.
Thank you. If this were a truck that would need to be pulling a bunch of things, is a fully electric, how does that handle in winter, cold winters here? Is that something we'd look at, or how do we address that?
Yeah, Councilor Richardson, through you, Mayor. When we got these bids in, we really sat down and talked about what's the use of this vehicle? Is this going to work for us? And JR actually jumped in, did lots of research with Shane, our street fleet manager, and they came back and said, yeah, this is going to work. But to your point, when we get to the next item on the agenda, we'll talk a little bit about why they may not be electric or whatever. So yeah, there's some uses that I don't think it's practical enough, but this is we think a perfect use for it.
Awesome, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Doherty?
I understand they can be pretty speedy, so be careful.
She has an electric bike.
She flies past your house all the time. Anyone else, councilors? All right. We will turn this over to the public. Any member of the public wishing to speak to this item, come forward in the room. Raise your hand on Zoom. Seeing none, I'll close public comment. Councilors, any comment before the vote? This is exciting. Brooks, thank you for flagging it for me so we had a chance to talk about it. So Mosquito may have gotten the first one, but we talked about yours, JR. So that's got to count for something. All right. City Clerk, please call the roll.
O'Doherty.
Yes.
Gabriel.
Yes.
Shumway.
Yes.
Richardson.
Yes.
Pierce.
Yes.
Newman.
Yes.
Shumway. Oh, sorry.
Yes again.
Somerville absent. Cumby.
Yes.
Harrington.
Yes.
That's 8 yeses, technically 9 with the 0 noes and 1 absent, Your Honor.
Thank you, City Clerk. That item has been approved. We'll move on to item 14, Councilor Richardson.
Thank you. I move to award the bid for the replacement of Unit 338 and Unit 360 service trucks with trade-in to Ken Garf Ford, Cheyenne, Wyoming, in an amount not to exceed $144,068.00, and authorize the mayor and city clerk to sign.
Second.
Motion by Richardson, seconded by Gabriel. Director Webb.
Mayor, Council, these two vehicles are replacement vehicles within the utility division. So these are the larger vehicles, 3/4 ton pickup trucks that you see with the big toolboxes on them. A couple of weeks ago when they had the valve trailer out here, it was attached to it. So this size vehicle, they don't make the electric or the hybrid. We do have an alternate on it that we're accepting for the idle reduction technology, which will help with that. But again, because of the heavy weight they pull in the large truck, the electric and the hybrid, well, one, they just don't make them, but two, it's just not practical at this point. My understanding is the manufacturers are working on those, so maybe something in the future. We got 2 bids in. Ken Garf was the low bidder, and we are recommending award to Ken Garf Ford.
Thank you. Councilor Sutton, any questions? Okay. Any questions? All right. Any member of the public wishing to speak to this item, come forward in the room or raise your hand on Zoom. Seeing none, close public comment. Councilor Newman.
I know we've had this conversation. I would like to see if city staff would reach out to like local dealerships and find out why they're not putting bids in, because it seems like a lot of our money is going to Cheyenne or Utah. So I'm kind of curious why some of the local ones aren't putting bids in.
You want to take it as a question? Or
I would love to, Mayor.
please.
Mayor, we have reached out to all the local dealerships. We actually, when we go out to bid, we send the bid advertisements to all the local dealerships, and all the dealerships really within the region that we know have bid before to keep things fair. They go to everybody. We've reached out to our local people to find out why, and we haven't got responses from them. I talked to the fleet guys a couple weeks ago when Councilor Newman brought this up to me, and they said they will continue reaching out to them. But to date, it's a little disheartening, actually. We did have a bid from a local one. It's been, I think, 4 years ago now, and they actually won the bid. But since then, we haven't had a single local bidder.
Thank you, Jacob. And thanks for the question, Councilor. Yeah, Councilor Doherty, please.
Yeah, so how does sales tax work for a city-purchased vehicle? Is it taxed, like, for the
Mayor, the
citizens?
city is tax exempt.
Thank you. Other questions? All right. I guess we're in comments. I've kind of lost my thread here a little bit, but any other comments, Councilor? All right, City Clerk, you can go ahead and call the roll, please.
Richardson.
Yes.
Pierce.
Yes.
O'Doherty.
Yes.
Newman.
Yes.
Gabriel.
Yes.
Shumway.
Yes.
Somerville. Absent. Cumby.
Yes.
Harrington.
Yes.
That's 8 yeses, 0 nos, and 1 absent, Your Honor.
Thank you, City Clerk. That item has been approved. We're on item 15, Councilor O'Doherty.
I should have had my screen. I move to award the professional services agreement for recycling services to Waste Management of Colorado, Inc., and authorize the mayor and clerk to sign.
Second?
Motion by O'Doherty, second by Gabriel.
Yeah, Mayor, Council, our current recycling services agreement is to expire at the end of the year. We went out for a request for proposal in July. We received 2 proposals. This is the first time I received more than 1 proposal, which was nice. The second proposer, during evaluations, looking through their proposals, we had some issues with in that they would not accept baled materials. And their transportation costs were pretty high. And so without baling the materials, we would have probably sent more than 2 times the trucks down the road to get that to market. So we're recommending that we stay with Waste Management, who's been, I think, a pretty good partner for us. The only real change to the agreement is they are adding back in plastics number 4 and 5. And so JR and his staff will be working on some PR, letting people know they can get those back in their containers now. They'd shut those down for a few years, but apparently Waste Management has a market for those now. Other than that, the agreement is pretty much the same. And in the future, they've let us know that if there's more materials to be added, we can add those in our program down the road. So with that, I'll take any questions if you have them.
Thank you. Any questions? Councilor Gabriel, please.
So Brooks, how quickly can we get those 4 and 5s back in?
That's a great question. Are they doing it now? The new agreement. The new agreement. So the new agreement will go into effect January 1st.
Okay.
Thank you. Good.
Councilor Doherty.
Yeah, I'm choked up again, so thank you for, I looked through that pretty thoroughly because I'm the only nerd that knew about number 1 needing to have screw tops, or number 1 and number 2. So anyway, I'm grateful, and they did mention glass in the contract, so we probably shouldn't mention that now because we need to see what's going to happen with glass.
Yeah, Mayor, through you, so basically they will, if there's glass in the container, they're recycling it is what they're saying, okay? The problem is if we tell people to put glass in the container, then it's going to contaminate everything else. So if there's incidental glass in the container, which we always have, they will recycle it.
Thank you, Councilor. Other questions? Okay. Thank you for your question. Any member of the public wishing to speak to this item, come forward in the room or raise your hand on Zoom. Seeing none, we'll close public comment. Councilors, any comment? Councilor Newman, please.
Out of everything on the agenda, this is one of 2 that somebody reached out to me and told me to vote no on this. Because they took away the plastics 4 and 5. So for that person, we're adding it back in, which is why I'm going to vote yes. Not that I would ever vote no against this, but it was weird that it was just one person was like, please vote no on this. And I was like, why? But so it is getting added back in. No.
Thank you, Councilor Newman. Councilor Doherty.
I think the public should know that it depends on what the market is. And if we're just paying to send it down to Colorado to go to the landfill, that's not very economical. So that's why we have to be so restrictive.
Thank you, Counselor. Any other comments? Okay. City Clerk, please call the roll.
Gabriel.
Yes.
Newman.
Yes.
O'Doherty.
Yes.
Pierce.
Yes.
Richardson.
Yes.
Shumway.
Yes.
Somerville, absent. Cumby.
Yes.
Harrington.
Yes.
That's 8 yeses, 0 nos, and 1 absent, Your Honor.
Thank you, City Clerk. That item's been approved. Item 16, Vice Mayor Cumby.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move that the Laramie City Council approve the contract with CPS Distributors as the sole source provider of equipment to update 30 irrigation controllers with new Toro Sentinel hardware in an amount not to exceed $240,740.03, and authorize the mayor and clerk to sign.
Oh, City Clerk, please.
Mayor, if I could just have a clarification on the dollar amount to be $240,743.03, is that right?
Yes,
Okay,
thank you. I'm sorry.
thank you.
Did she get a second? I can second if she didn't.
We just did. Thank you, Counselor Pierce. Counselor Gabriel is on the second. So a motion by Cumby, second by Gabriel.
Honorable Mayor and City Council, thank you for being here tonight. We have, as in the title, we have 30 irrigation controllers that are Generation 1 of the Toro Sentinel system. The new model is a Generation 3, and what we're having happening now, these are our kind of really sophisticated controllers that do everything from monitor potential water leaks to even monitoring what the weather and weather systems are like to increase or decrease water supplies to all of our various irrigation systems. We're now having problems with the new software and our computers talking to these monitor systems. And so what we're asking for in this action is to upgrade to the Generation 3, which is the newest generation. And CPS controllers, because these are Toro Sentinel, we can't replace them with another type of monitoring system. And so that's why we're asking for this sole source award. And I'm open for any questions if you have any.
Thank you. Councilors, any questions? All right. Oh, Councilor Pierce, please.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I don't necessarily have a question and just a comment. Should I wait?
Go ahead.
You know, I just really appreciate the sole source clarification. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Gabriel, do you have a question? Comment?
Question.
It's all yours.
Mike, I was just curious if after a big rainstorm, this system will shut off automatically our irrigation system, because I see that all the time around the city, university, school district, big rain, and here we got the sprinkler systems going.
Yeah. Honorable Mayor, through you, I do believe that the new Generation 3 has that ability to maybe not shut off completely, but it will reduce the amount that's watered based on the weather patterns. Yes.
Thank you.
Sure. Anyone else? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any member of the public wishing to speak to this item, go ahead and come forward to the room or raise your hand and Zoom call. Seeing none, we'll close public comment. Councilors, anything before the vote? All right, City Clerk, please call the roll.
Shumway.
Yes.
Richardson.
Yes.
Pierce.
Yes.
O'Doherty.
Yes.
Newman.
Yes.
Gabriel.
Yes.
Somerville, absent. Cumby.
Yes.
Harrington.
Yes.
That's 8 yeses, 0 nos, and 1 absent, Your Honor.
Thank you, City Clerk. That item has been approved. We'll move on to item 17. Councilor Gabriel.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that the Laramie City Council approve the Laramie Rotary Club's Park Amendment Number 1, increasing the contracted amount not to exceed $2,436,291, authorize a construction contingency of $120,000, approve the associated budget amendment resolution of 2024-83, and authorize the mayor and clerk to sign.
Second.
Motion by Gabriel, second by Richardson. Welcome back.
Honorable Mayor, City Council, good to see you again. This very exciting project, which if you haven't been up to see the ground, it has been all cleared and is ready. I believe water and sewer and bathroom construction are going to be starting fairly soon. But this contract change order number 1 is going to be adding 3 add alternates to the project. The first is a sports court, which is kind of in the lower area of the park, a little bit further away from the street. Add alternate number 3 is the Crusher Finds Trail, which is going to go from sidewalks and kind of weave in and around the playground and park area, and I believe also go out to the dog park area that's going to be constructed. And then add alternate number 5, which is adding the restroom in that modified amount. We were able to reduce the cost of the restroom, as you see in the report, by almost $48,000 just by changing the way it's being constructed. So we're very excited about that. So that's the change order. And then the budget amendment, as you see, we have a few things that have happened. We've had an anonymous donation of $130,000 towards the project. And we have an increase in our park and lieu fee payment of about $64,845. And then we also have a reduction, if you see in the change or in the budget amendment, a reduction in the specific purpose tax of $67,905.90. So that's where that total of $126,940 comes from. So very exciting things. The project is moving along very well on schedule. We've been meeting with Big Hunks on a regular basis as the project's been moving forward, and we anticipate no problems as we continue along. And we anticipate a late spring, early summer grand opening if everything tracks along well as expected. And that's all that I have for my report. If you have any questions.
Thank you. Councilor Gabriel, please.
Thanks, Mayor.
Of course.
I took a drive up there today. I was just curious, looks like, as you mentioned, things are moving along. What is all of that rock material to the west? Is that city involved, or? No,
that's a private contracting firm that is building houses along that side of the project, and so that I believe kind of delineates a berm that's going to be removed as they start building the houses along the property.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Councilor. Other questions? All right. We'll turn this over to the public then. Any member of the public wishing to speak to this item, come forward in the room. Raise your hand if you're on Zoom. All right. Seeing none, we will close public comment. Councilors, anything before the vote? All right. I'm looking forward to, my daughter will appreciate the update on when the new park is coming. So thank you. All right, City Clerk, please call the roll.
Gabriel.
Yes.
Pierce.
Yes.
Shumway.
Yes.
Richardson.
Yes.
O'Doherty.
Yes.
Newman.
Yes.
Somerville absent. Cumby.
Yes.
Harrington.
Yes.
That's 8 yeses, 0 nos, and 1 absent, Your Honor.
Thank you, City Clerk. That item has been approved. We'll move on to item 18. Councilor Richardson.
Thank you. I move to approve Resolution 2024-84, authorizing the submittal of a solid waste infrastructure for recycling grant application to the Environmental Protection Agency, an amount not to exceed $5 million, to support local recycling, expansion, education, outreach, and planning initiatives, and authorize the mayor and city clerk to sign.
Motion by Richardson, seconded by Newman. City Manager.
Good evening, Council. We are presenting tonight to you a resolution to authorize the submission of an application to the Environmental Protection Agency's Solid Waste Infrastructure and for Recycling Grant Program, or SWIFR, as we've been calling it in my office. This grant program was authorized under the Save the Seas Act and funded through the bipartisan infrastructure law. EPA says they will award 20 to 30 grants ranging from $500,000 to $5 million each.
and they ensure at least one award in every EPA region. You should know a region includes multiple states, but we do think that we are able to mount a competitive application. So let me tell you what we know right now. Tonight, we're asking you in the resolution to authorize the grant up to $5 million. We are not as yet certain what the exact amount we are applying for will be, but we know we won't exceed the cap under the rules. What we are asking for funding for is to increase access to recycling in the community by offering recycling to our multifamily and commercial properties. As you know, Council, right now, we offer recycling for single-family homes only, and the folks who live in those single-family homes, which is defined as 2 or less kitchen units. So we would be able to, if we receive the grant, expand recycling services. We also hope to increase our recycling rate, obviously, if we expand the services, and then we're requesting funding to develop a comprehensive 10-year recycling strategy that would set out a clear plan for how we will achieve waste diversion goals, promote long-term sustainability, and do that in a way that is financially sustainable for our ratepayers. A few facts to share with you. Right now, our multifamily properties are not served, as you know. We believe we could serve an additional roughly 10,000 residents of Laramie if we can expand into that section of services. And effectively what we're looking for in funding, the big part of the funding ask, I think, will be what I call startup costs to start this business unit within our solid waste and recycling enterprise. I wanted to share with you that in 2023, we recycled 13.1 million pounds of recyclables. Of those, 2.7 million pounds came from our single-stream, single-family house services that are available right now. We believe that this project we think it's really great, and we think it will be novel in the state, and we're hoping that that will make EPA more likely to fund the project. We learned from the recycling partnership that there are 3 Wyoming cities currently offering any municipal recycling pickup, one of them being Laramie, and that only 6% of multifamily properties or residential units in this state have any recycling available to them. So we thought that was pretty interesting. This will make it, as far as we know, one of the only comprehensive multifamily offerings in the state. And I would mention to you as well that you well know this supports your sustainability goals as adopted for 2050, and then also is supported through the emissions reduction plan, which you adopted this year. So meets city objectives. Working with me on this project, we have Sarah Reese on contract helping us write the grant. Jay Smith is working with me under the guise of natural resource protection and emissions reduction, and of course our solid waste people. So if you have any questions, we're happy to answer those. I would caution you, if we get too far into the detail and the weeds, we may not have all of that detail yet. This application is due late December, and so literally we are working out budgets and logistical data points as we speak.
Thank you, City Manager. Councilors, any questions? Please, Councilor Shumway.
My question is, by doing this, does the city intend to compete with Republic and Waste Management?
Interesting about what?
Councilor, through you, Mayor. So Republic Services does offer that, so we would hope they would continue to offer it in certain places that we still might not be able to get into. Waste Management has no pickup currently within the city. We do partner with them to bring our recycling to them, so we have already had discussions with them, and they're looking forward to possibly taking more recycling from us and getting it distributed to useful and beneficial purposes.
Thank you, Councilor. Any other questions? Forgive me. Please, Director Webb.
Yeah, Mayor, if I could just add one thing. The local hauler that it picks up some commercial recycling now, they actually deliver that to us, and we bale it and take it to Denver. So that material is already coming to us anyway.
Thank you. That's all. Any other questions, Council? Turn it to the public. Any member of the public wishing to speak to this item, come forward in the room or raise your hand on the Zoom call. Seeing none, I'll close public comment. Back to the council. Anything before the vote? Vice Mayor?
I'm very happy to see this moving forward. Over the past few months, I've had occasion to talk to a number of people who live in multifamily dwellings, and it was a frequent topic of concern, wanting the ability to recycle. So I think there's certainly people who are very interested in wanting this, and I really appreciate it moving forward.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Anyone else? I would just note one small typo in the now therefore line, just a Scribner's error, but there's just a word missing and a space missing, but we can clean that up. All right, so City Clerk, go ahead and call the roll, please.
Sorry, Mayor, I was just trying to pull that up so we could see if we need to make an amendment to it or.
It's missing the, so it says something City Laramie.
Good. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it would just be fixed. It's not consequential in any way.
Thank you, Mayor.
Yeah, of course. All right, and call the roll whenever you're ready. Sorry, I threw a task at you, and then I was like,
No,
do
you're
this
good.
too.
Gabriel.
Yes.
Newman.
Yes.
O'Doherty.
Yes.
Pierce.
Yes.
Richardson.
Yes.
Shumway.
Yes.
Somerville, absent. Cumby.
Yes.
Harrington.
Yes.
That's 8 yeses, 0 noes, and 1 absent, Your Honor.
Thank you, City Clerk. That item has been approved. We'll move on to item 19. Councilor Pierce.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I move to approve original ordinance 20. You can hear me okay, right?
Yes.
Okay, good. I'll start over. I move to approve original ordinance number 2093, amending Laramie Municipal Code 5.82.050 of the City of Laramie to modify the body that considers revocation of a mobile vending license, changing it from City Council to the Board of Appeals on first reading in accordance with findings of fact and conclusions of law.
Second.
Motion by Pierce, seconded by Newman. Director King.
Welcome, Mayor and Council. Good evening. This item is as a result of a work session, as mentioned by Councilmember Newman, about 6 or 7 months ago regarding mobile vending licensing. If you take a look in the ordinance, it's actually a very, very small change we're making to the actual wording. But what it does is it takes any type of suspension or revocation of a mobile vending license and puts it to the Board of Appeals for consideration. So following kind of one situation that we've had, the only situation we've had, it was determined that having the Board of Appeals look at these would be a little more efficient and maybe reduce the workload of council, and I think be an appropriate body, being the Board of Appeals, to consider the probably very few that we will get. And so I can take any questions that you may have, but like I said, this is a very simple change, and it adjusts so that the City Council will no longer hear those appeals. So,
thank you. Council members, any questions on the first reading? All right. Seeing no questions, we'll turn it over to the public. Any member of the public wishing to speak to this item can come forward in the room or raise their hand on the Zoom call. All right, seeing none, I'll close public comment. Councilors, anything before the vote? All right. City Clerk, please call the roll.
Pierce.
Yes.
Richardson.
Yes.
Shumway.
Yes.
Somerville, absent. Gabriel.
Yes.
Newman.
Yes.
O'Doherty.
Yes.
Cumby.
Yes.
Harrington.
Yes.
That's 8 yeses, 0 noes, and 1 absent, Your Honor.
Thank you, City Clerk. That item has been approved on first reading. We'll move on to item 20. Councilor Pierce.
Thank you, Mayor. I move to approve original ordinance number 2094, amending Title 13-.04.360 of the Laramie Municipal Code as recommended by city staff on first reading in accordance with findings of fact and conclusions of law.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Pierce, second by Richardson. Mr. Smith, how are you?
Mr. Mayor, City Councilors, just a brief explanation of what the original ordinance was. all non-municipal wells within city limits require a permit issued by the city council. And also, there was some other stipulations in there, such as metering and annual reporting, depending on the production of those wells. And what staff is recommending to you is to make 3 essential modifications to this. First, to bring the permitting process in line with other permitting processes within the city. So through the city manager's office, permitted through there. The second is to, I lost my train of thought there for a second, is to leave some discretion for the reporting and also the annual reports. I don't know why I've lost my train of thought, I apologize. For the reporting requirements, but also the meter requirement. And there are a couple specific instances for that, such as LCCC's wells. Those, there's no consumption with those. They use those for thermal heating, so it's a circular system. So annual reporting, there's not much to report there because the water goes right back. And also with a meter there, again, there's no data for that. It's not helpful to the city. And then also the majority of these wells are going to be smaller domestic wells. So inconsequential to what the intent of the council was. And when we look at some of these, I think it's important to remember the Casper and the other aquifers that are around. What is most cost effective and efficient for the city and for staff time there, looking at that. And another reason for some of these changes, or proposed changes, is when this program first got pushed forward, the scope and size was not really known at that time. Now we have an inventory, and it's about 240 wells. So going through, registering, permitting, all of those, keeping the database, annual reporting, and looking at what is the benefit in the end? What is the potential for contamination, cross-connection? Because that's another part of this process, is with utility staff, they go out and they do a site inspection to ensure there's no cross-connection. So with these changes, along with having the permitting process through the city manager's office, updating the reporting requirements to add some discretion there instead of a shall. So then if it makes sense, then yes, annual reporting and metering. And then the other update to that would be the changing to, instead of existing wells being permitted, they would be registered through the city. So then we would have that inventory and we would have all of the data that would be required to analyze that and see what the impact is, financially, safety, all of those concerns the council originally had when this ordinance came up. And I apologize for flubbing my words earlier.
No, you're just fine. All right, council members, any questions? Councilor Sherman, please.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Smith, does this include monitoring or registering or checking on the University of Wyoming's water consumption and use?
Mr. Mayor, through you, I would, for monitoring wells, it does include those, because those are with some of the other concerns within the city with the cap and with that, it's a direct conduit to the aquifer and leads to the potential for contamination. With University of Wells, that's a different situation. I can't pull the state law right from the top of my head, but the one that was passed a couple of years ago. They kind of removed them from this. I'm not sure how to put that eloquently. Yeah.
Thank you. Yes. All right. Thank you, Councilmember. Councilor Richardson, please.
Thank you. You had mentioned that we wouldn't really monitor those smaller wells. Would there ever be a reason, would there be a time frame where every 10 years we would do some sort of inspection on the smaller wells, or is it just not, I don't know enough to know.
Mr. Mayor, through you, working with utility staff, there has been some discussions about, there's that initial cross-connection inspection to where when a well is registered, essentially a licensed geologist, a staff member from utilities from, I believe it's the meters crew, and also a GIS technician goes out, gets the lat long. They inspect that to ensure there is no cross connection, because that cannot happen. You can't have imported water put inside the city's municipal system. But as far as follow-up goes, there has been some discussion about would it make sense to check that cross connection initially and then have a reoccurring time frame for an inspection. And right now we're still discussing that idea on what would that follow-up inspection look like, what's the time frame, and then looking at what the cost benefit of that would be. Because as I said, it's 200 plus wells. And I can tell you the initial contacting of well owners is very difficult, because in 1950, when they permitted this well in West Laramie, the records are not very good for those older wells at the state engineer's office. So essentially, you go through, you try to pick out, because the map is hand-drawn, you try to pick out where you think it is, you call the neighbor, and the neighbor's like, I don't have a well. Check my neighbor, and then you talk to them, and you kind of work through that. So once we have that contact info, it obviously would be easier, but then again, doing that cost-benefit ratio to see what does this look like? Or analysis, not ratio.
Thank you. Councilor Gabriel.
So I'm just looking through here to discover the scope that we're talking about. How many, are you talking about the wells in the county, east of the city, all of those wells?
Mr. Mayor, through you. So this would be any well and any non-municipal well within the city limits. So only within the city limits and only non-municipal well. And the way that non-municipal is defined as it's not a city of Laramie well. And it comes as a shock to some well owners that they have a well, right? There's a standpipe in their backyard that's been cut down, and 50 years ago someone jammed a 2x4 down there that they cut, right? And then filled it in with bentonite if they did a really good job to plug and abandon those. Typically it's just the piece of wood that's jammed down there. But those would be the wells that we're looking at just inside the city of Laramie.
Thank you.
And there's some interesting dates that I won't bore you with, but in West Laramie, about 172 wells are located there, and the majority of those at one time were connected to the home. They were not just lawn watering, irrigation. So those ones are, the cross-connection inspection is pretty important.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Pierce?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. My question has to do with, and I really love the explanation related to the cross connection. What I'm concerned about is potentially testing for contaminants of some sort, or things that could potentially, maybe they're using this well for, I don't know, irrigating their yard or something. I'm just wondering if we're going to test for any substances or particles that would not be good.
Mr. Mayor, through you. So what has been happening over the life of this program is that when the well owner is connected or contacted, there is the opportunity we bring up the idea, hey, we could test this water for you and let you know what the quality is. For some of those same reasons you're talking about, they may only use it to water the backyard, right? But they may fill up a small swimming pool and then kids and animals get into it. So we offer that, we do not require it though.
Thank you.
Thank you, I really appreciate that.
Any other questions, councilors? Councilor Shumway, please.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Smith, during my time on council, we have contacted owners and given them, or tried to have an agreement for them to cap wells if there's livestock or something that could potentially contaminate through the well into our aquifer. I know that you're going to catalog all these and you're going to look at them all, but I think we need to be very careful that we don't have any opportunity for things such as, livestock waste going into our aquifer where there may be a need to isolate or cap them so that we don't have that problem.
Mr. Mayor. I agree with that sentiment exactly, and that's another one of the things that we kind of talk to, because the state engineer's office has a very strict policy on how a well is plugged and abandoned. They have an exact procedure. They should be. So if we find a well that is not properly plugged or abandoned, then we provide that service of, hey, this is how this is going to happen. There's also some funding out that you can go through. I believe it's the Water Development Office, but I'll have to check on that to make sure. But that you can help to fund the plug and abandonment of the well. But yes, that's and direct conduits, especially in the Casper and alluvial aquifer, you still do not want to contaminate that, but that water has a different source and a different path. It's not coming from a void. It's essentially surface water making its way back to the river. So depending on the depth and the formation you're in.
Cool. Councilor Brody?
If someone sees a pipe, then they're not sure if it's a well, what kind of diameter are you talking about that you've, because I know about a pipe sticking in the ground, and I was wondering, what the heck is this thing? And it just looks like a hole in the ground. How big are they typically?
Mr. Mayor, they can range from 2 inches to, in a massive well that we probably would not find in someone's backyard, to something like 24 inches, right? There's other well casings that could be, a typical size for a domestic 25 gallon per minute is somewhere between 2 and 4 inches.
If someone is not sure what this thing is in their ground, could they ask you to, or ask for someone from the city to take a look in case it's a well?
Mr. Mayor, absolutely, and probably they're on my list to be contacted. So in the beginning, the way a consultant was hired and then an inventory and analysis began. So the inventory quickly became very expansive because it went through and it didn't look anywhere else except for the state engineer's records. So every well, canceled, wells that have been assumed to be plugged and abandoned, modern, some of the older wells, all of those were cataloged. So we have that now. The really time-intensive piece of it is finding out who the owner is, because at the state engineer's office, you have the applicant. So whoever originally applied for it, and then it was subdivided, and maybe there's 4 wells out there, and now that's been subdivided. So that's where it gets a little bit difficult. So it would make it much easier if the well owner had questions and they contacted us. But we also, I think, one of the plans that we have for the future is to hold kind of town hall events to say, hey, if you got a pipe in your yard, come talk to us. We'll tell you what that thing is.
Sounds like Councilor O'Doherty would be there. All right. Any other questions, councilors? All right. Thank you. We'll turn this over to the public. If there's a member of the public wishing to speak to this item, go ahead and come forward in the room or raise your hand on the Zoom call. Seeing none, we'll close public comment. Councilors, before the vote on first reading. All right. City Clerk, please call the roll.
Pierce.
Yes.
O'Doherty.
Yes.
Newman.
Yes.
Gabriel.
Yes.
Richardson.
Yes.
Shumway.
Yes.
Somerville. Absent. Cumby.
Yes.
Harrington.
Yes.
That's 8 yeses, 0 nos, and 1 absent, Your Honor.
Thank you, City Clerk. It's been approved. We move on to item 21. Councilor O'Doherty.
I move to approve first reading and introduction of original ordinance number 2095, adding Laramie Municipal Code Division, Roman numeral 7, section 13.80, creating a surface water drainage utility fund.
Second. Thank you. I was moving right on. Thank you, Councilor Gabriel. So motion by Moody, second by Gabriel. Director Webb.
Mayor, Council, good evening again. I know you've heard a lot about this. We've actually had 4 work sessions over the past year or so on the surface water drainage utility fund. We've been working on this for a couple of years. As you know, we formed a stormwater focus group about 1.5 years ago. We met with them 4 times to really kind of get that public input, that stakeholder input. What you see in the ordinance, and I'll hit some of the highlights, is really a lot of what you saw at the last work session and what we felt like was maybe some direction from you on where you wanted to land on this. Looking at the ordinance, again, I'm just going to hit some highlights. In the definitions, the big one there, really, it defines what a billing unit is. The billing unit is 500 square feet of impervious area. The next section is the imposition of the surface water drainage fee. So for the first year, starting in July 1 of 2025, it's $1.67 per billing unit. Those are the same exact numbers that we showed you at the work session back in, I think it was August. And then the second year, starting July 1, 2026, to $1.75. That same section exempts 4 different types of properties. The first is any public right-of-ways, so streets, sidewalks that are in public right-of-ways. Rail and associated rail ballast. The rail yards are really hard to map out on what's impervious and what's not. Agricultural land, which required by statute that we, or by state statute that we do not impose fee on the agricultural land. And then airport runways and tarmacs. The next section establishes the fund, and it basically says it shall be used solely to cover the cost of the city's surface water drainage management program. That's the intent. The next section sets out the fee for calculation, or the method of the calculation of the fee. And it's really pretty a simple calculation on how we do that. The next section talks about the credits. We went through the credit manual at the last work session. And the ordinance requires that you, the city council, by resolution, will adopt the types and amounts of credits. And then the city manager or designee will then develop the policies and procedures through the credit manual to make that happen. The next section with billing and interest is really similar to what we have in other places of ordinance. This is going to be on utility bill, and the owner is responsible for, the owner of the property, not necessarily the tenant, is responsible for the fee. The next section lays out the appeal process. The first appeal is to the city engineer, which then goes to the city manager's office if they are not happy there. Aaron Murray with WSP is here in the room. He presented to you at the work session. Elizabeth Treadway is on the phone. Jen Wade was a part of the BIT team for finance side of things, and then Eric Japp, our city engineer, is here if there's any technical questions. So if you have anything, I'll be happy to take them.
Thank you, Director Webb. Councilman, if there's any questions, we've had quite a bit of conversation on this topic, but Councilor O'Doherty, Councilor.
Yes, we have had a lot of discussion, and I'm really appreciative of the work that's gone into this. It's very thoughtful. But I was wondering if we could explain when these were addressed in our agendas, so that if people want more information, they understand why we're not going through the hour discussion again. I guess it's all referred to in here, the dates of those meetings. I just think it would be nice for the public to know when those things, if they want to understand it in depth, because it's been explained to us several times very well. So I would like that available to the public.
Yeah, Mayor. I outlined the dates of the work sessions in your summary cover sheet here. September 27th, 2022 was the first one when we kind of kicked off. February 28th, 2024, May 28th, 2024, and August 27th, 2024. Those recordings are all on the Agenda Center. And the work session from August 27th, we loaded into the packet. So that presentation's attached.
Thank you, Councilor. And if folks are particularly interested in some of the discussion, they can also find videos on YouTube and stream those meetings. If you've got nothing better to do, watch us. Councilor Newman, please.
This was the second thing that somebody reached out to me about. City Clerk, my computer locked me out, so I had some notes. I don't remember what some of them are, but could you tell me what we're going to use this money for that we collect from the citizens?
Sure. Mayor, through you, this is to maintain our storm drain system. Currently, any work we do through the storm drain system comes directly out of the general fund. And there's a lot of work through the storm drain system that we simply don't do because it comes out of the general fund. We have through our storm sewer master plan, storm drains master plan, a list of, I don't remember what it is, 70 or 100 projects that need to be done. Those are prioritized. We're way behind on those. This money will fund the daily maintenance, employees and equipment to go clean storm drainage, do street sweeping, camera lines, things like that. Also set aside monies for capital improvement projects.
Anything else, Councilor Newman? That's all I remember. Okay, great. Well, you'll have another shot at it on second reading if we get there. Before I go to Councilor Gabriel, City Manager, do you have something to add?
I just wanted to add to that. You'll recall, Council, the capital plan estimated a backlog of need of $130 million, 30 million of which is a very high priority need, meaning we need to accomplish that as soon as possible. So there's a lot of work to be done.
Thank you, City Manager. Councilor Gabriel?
Thanks, Mayor. I was just curious, Aaron, if you wouldn't mind coming up or maybe we should get Brooks done first, and then I'd like to hear from Aaron, just a general question.
Sure. Anything else for Director Webb? Yeah, Councilor,
Just
please.
one quick question. I think this is one that you can answer. As a reminder, when we're looking at that parcel does include the living unit on it, correct?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else for Director? All right. Thank you, Director. Aaron, please come on forward. Councilor Gabriel.
And then, Aaron, just a general question. After our 4 work sessions, anything unusual come up, or maybe tell us how you came about putting all this together for us?
Sure.
Just like to hear some of that discussion.
Yeah, sure. Hello, Mayor and Council. So as Brooks described, we built a cost model and to show, what this public money will be spent on, and it included personnel. So we looked at what the city currently requires and what they will require in the future. So it includes, several full-time equivalents in a few out years. It includes the direct expenses that go along with those personnel, as well as equipment costs for the maintenance operations, the inspecting of the pipes, the CCTV camera. It includes the capital projects. And so that was one thing I did want to mention. As the city manager pointed out, 30 million of the backlog is designated as high priority. And with this plan, as presented, it gets through that high priority within the 10-year period and starts to get into the medium priority in those out years, in years 8, 9, 10. And so it is built on the specific projects. And so that's one thing you may remember when we looked at the the way the expenses work, now that the rate is pretty steady, but the expenses are varying because we have a big project and then we have a small project while we're doing some design, and then we save up and have a big project. So there's a capital reserve that will fluctuate as you're building up funds to do the big project. So we looked at that, we made sure we accounted for inflation and the construction costs in those out years. It also includes the administrative costs of sending out the bills. That's probably been the biggest thing we've worked on since we last talked to you, is working closely with city staff, making sure what we can provide is going to be compatible with the billing system. So we basically generate a sample billing file where we have the measured impervious area for each property, calculated out what that fee would be, and went through and kind of scrubbed that and said, okay, how does it make sense? And is this something you can work with? So we have gone through that with staff. So if this is adopted, we know that it can work. So I don't know if that answered your question yet. Okay.
Thank you for the answer, Gabriel. We appreciate that. Any other questions for Mr. Murray or Ms. Treadway? Okay, thank you. Thanks. We'll turn over the time to the public. There's a member. Oh, please, Treadway.
Honorable Mayor, thank you. Just because there's been some good questions, I'd like to just remind the mayor and the council what we've talked about for funding the storm drainage function. I think it's really important to realize that not all of this rate is being passed back to our community. We are planning to seed this fund with a $5 million transfer from the general fund. That is possible because of the one-time sales and use tax collections we're experiencing right now from energy development. And so if you do approve this ordinance, you can expect us to bring a budget amendment for that transfer forward. Just like also our water and wastewater and solid waste operations, we are planning for significant grant funding, and that is calculated into the rate projections. And the version of the model I'm looking at, it's somewhere between 12 and 14 million over the 10-year period. That is not insignificant. In addition, we are also putting in as a placeholder $4 million in potential SPT funding related to a future tax. And so I want you to know that staff did load in all of these funding assumptions working with the consultant to make this rate as achievable for our community as possible. And I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions, council members? Thank you, Director Wade. We sure appreciate that extra context. All right, we'll turn this over to the public. I see Mr. Glass has his hand up, so please go ahead and let him in. And Mr. Glass, when you enter the meeting, we'll just need your camera on, and we will have 3 minutes. Hello, Mr. Glass, welcome.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and members of council. I certainly think that it's a good idea to have better storm drainage, especially in areas like the Pine River, in other words, Pine Street on the west side. But there's one thing about this proposed ordinance that caught my eye. In the definitions, item C, it says impervious area means a surface that prevents the downward infiltration of water into the underlying soil. And then it says gravel, soil, crushed stone, or other unpaved surface shall be considered impervious area when designed or primarily utilized to support vehicular traffic or vehicular parking. So what this means is that the fee is essentially a tax on parking. And I think we should consider whether this is good policy, especially since we have eliminated in the UDC the requirements for garages in new development. We're lowering the cost of housing supposedly by doing that. Well, we're raising it by then taxing the parking pad that you have to build next to your house. And we certainly want businesses to have adequate parking, because otherwise we're going to have congestion and other problems. So we may want to consider adding parking, or at least some fraction of people's parking, to the exemptions in the next section in 20B. I really think that would be a good idea so that we don't discourage people from having or making parking. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you for taking time to speak to us, Mr. Glass. Any other members of the public wishing to speak to this item? Seeing none, I'm going to close public comment. Councilors, any comments before the vote on first reading? City Clerk? Oh, Councilor Pierce, please. Sorry.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I just want to add a comment related to things that council has heard time and time again from our state representatives in Albany County. And that is basically when the state offers the municipality an opportunity to work within the community and help fund the functions that a municipality is required to do, we need to do that. And because then they say to us, well, you can't go asking for money if you're not using, all the tools that you're given. And this is one of the tools that we were given by the state of Wyoming, I think probably 3 years, I don't think it's been 4, but 3 years ago, and we're here. Staff has done the work. They've made various financial models like Director Wade talked about. They've surveyed the community and they've done the work, and we know we need to do this. This isn't something that we are like jumping up and down in joy for. This is something that we need to do based on our current budget situation. So I think it's important that our citizens know that a lot of time, effort, and study has occurred. And we do this with a heavy heart, but we certainly do this because we know we need to do it. And we've been told, like I said, time and time again, when the state gives you the opportunity, you do the work and you get it done. So I think we need to be clear on that.
Thank you, Councilor Pierce. Anyone else, Councilor? Okay, Councilor Newman, please.
I have been going back and forth on this because it was the most that more than a few people have reached out. And here's the argument that they brought to me, which makes sense in my mind sometimes, and then sometimes it doesn't. So tonight I'm not going to support this, so I can look at some budget, or some amendments. But we want affordable housing, and this is going to tax our residents more. And I don't feel like at this moment that classifies as affordable, if that makes sense. It makes sense in my brain right now, but I'll have some amendments, I think, next time.
Thank you, Councilor Newman. Councilor Shumway?
Thank you, Your Honor. This is a concern for many, many people in the city of Laramie because it's a tax that they have not been taxed directly for over 150 years, and now we're going to start giving them a monthly addition to their utility bill. I know that there's a real concern. Personally, it impacted me this past month to the tune of $18,000 for stormwater damage that happened to my home where I had to make repairs. We need to modernize our city and get to the point where we do that. But as Councilor Newman said, it concerns me that we're now taxing the citizens of Laramie for something where 95% of them will never be impacted by stormwater runoff. But the 5% that her homes and their property are ruined and they have to make repairs not only to the residents but also to the city, to the businesses, to the community. There is a major impact. Now we talked about spending $20 million through grants and collections and things in the first 10 years. The $130 million is going to escalate. It's going to become probably a quarter, 2 or 3 times that by the time we do all of the infrastructure and put everything in. I'm going to vote for it because I think we need to modernize the city. I feel badly that 95% of the people will never see a direct benefit to them other than they're beautifying the community and helping their neighbors. It's something that a modern city should do. I'm going to vote that we do it, and hopefully we can come up with some ideas to where we can take some of the burden off the property owners that already are overburdened on paying taxes and utilities.
Thank you, Councilor. Anyone else? Yeah, Councilor.
I want to point out that we're all affected by stormwater. It's coming on all of our properties, and it's going somewhere. So if we can control that, I know it causes a lot of backup with ice, and it's really dangerous to everybody in the community. And I'm constantly trying to clean out storm drains, keep ice out of the storm drains so that the water will flow down the storm drain. So I think that it's a rare person in Laramie that isn't affected by ice in the winter that's created by dams that are created near, that the water is not flowing in the winter. So I think, I'd rather a ferry came and gave us money to just have this done, but we're on our own now. We're going to have less federal funds coming in, and if we don't tackle it ourselves, the state doesn't want to give us money because they say, well, you're not taking advantage of all these gifts we've given you that you can tax directly. We don't want to do it, but we're giving you this gift. And if they deny us funds, so we're on our own and we have to do this, and it's a few dollars a month. It's not, it's not as bad as I thought it was going to be when we first talked about it. I thought it was pretty scary, but a couple dollars a month compared to other things that people spend money on, I think this is a good investment.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Richardson, please.
I would echo that it's none of us want to give ourselves more taxes, give other people additional taxes, but thinking about it in terms of even like an old house, if you don't start doing those repairs, they are just going to compound and get worse. And if we don't start addressing these issues now and have a plan in place that allows us to think about how we can, over time pay our bills to make the repairs, I think it's just going to become a larger issue, and even more people will be impacted. There will be more roads that are closed off that you can't get through because they're completely flooded. More cars are damaged, more houses are damaged. So long term, I just think it's a good move.
Thank you, Councilor. Anyone else? Senior.
Mayor, I just thought I would add this, and to be transparent, we probably should have had this in the cover sheet for your materials as well, but I will say, I would remind the council that just this year, when we surveyed the public, and we said, rank the following city services and programs based on their importance to you. Stormwater runoff management was the only city service that ranked consistently in the first and second quartile. So it was recognized by our residents that there are deficiencies in the stormwater system and that those needed to be corrected. I'll also mention that in the open category that we had at the end of the survey, where we just asked people, tell us things that bother you, that you want fixed, that you want more of. Stormwater was also mentioned repeatedly after the storms that we've seen in the last 4 and 5 years.
Thank you, City Manager. I think maybe just as a closing thought here, I'm very favorable to this, and I think one of the comments about the, who this affects, I think there is, I want to maybe zoom out on that just a little bit, because I think, sure, there are houses that aren't going to flood. The majority, ideally, the majority won't deal with sort of consistent or regular flooding. But the way in which we fund our, I think it's a misnomer that somehow we're doing something new because we're funding a thing that already exists, but we're funding it already. We're just funding it out of our general fund. So sure, your house may not flood, but you want your potholes fixed, and you want other things, you would like street sweeping, things of that variety. Those are things that are going to come out of the general fund that are now possible because we have replaced funding through this utility fund, and I think that is an important thing to remember. And then more often than not, if you're dealing with stormwater issues, it is not your fault. It is, it's not that you know, something was awry. It's probably that the developer historically, or you know, some person at some point, misplanned, and now stormwater is problematic, or maybe the city doesn't have pipes of adequate size to deal with consistent 100-year floods or 100-year rains, right? So those are not faults of yours, and they are not things that you could have planned on when you purchased a home. And so I think in a lot of ways that is a community effort. That's something we should all fix together. And so I have a hard time maybe, you know, and Counselor, I know that wasn't, I mean, you said you intend to vote for it. I know that's not an argument to try to persuade us. You just understand the sort of seriousness of imposing new fees, and so your point is taken there. But I just think there is more complexity to the funding. And then I just think there are, I don't view this as any sort of impact on affordability of housing. I think the dollar amounts of the $5 a month or whatever is just not going to change the market. I mean, we may see we may see some sort of increase, right? Because we imposed a $20 fee on a rental, and all of a sudden the rent's double. And so, but I don't think that's based in reality. I don't think that's a cause and effect. I think that's opportunism. And so the market's going to dictate what a 3-bedroom house sells for, right? And I don't think this is going to change the market meaningfully in that way. But at least not for paving or for the cost of having a place to park your RV next to the house. It's just, I just don't see this significant enough increase in cost to do that. So thank you all for humoring that ramble.
Mayor?
Please.
167 per billing unit.
For 500 square feet. Thank you, Councilor. All right, City Clerk, you can call the roll. This is again on first reading, so more discussion will come in a couple weeks.
O'Doherty.
Yes.
Pierce.
Yes.
Richardson.
Yes.
Newman.
No.
Gabriel.
Yes.
Shumway.
Yes.
Somerville, absent. Cumby.
Yes.
Harrington.
Yes.
That's 7 yeses, 1 no, and 1 absent, Your Honor.
Thank you, City Clerk. That item is passed first reading. We'll move on to public comments on non-agenda items. Any member of the public wishing to speak to the council on an item not on our agenda, go ahead and raise your hand on the Zoom call or come forward in the room. And I see Mr. Glass has his hand up. City Clerk, please welcome him back into the room. While we're waiting for him to make it, thank you all for hanging out all evening. We sure appreciate it. Yeah, thank you all. All right,
Yes.
Mr. Glass, welcome back.
Yes, honorable mayor, members of council, this is actually the comment period that I came for. I noticed that right after the public comment period, you're going to be discussing future city council work sessions. And I noticed that on your list of future city council work sessions, you have a topic which hasn't been scheduled, which is exits from basements. Now, as you know, I did not make the cut, just barely. I walked around the entire city of Laramie as a candidate for city council, and I knocked on a lot of doors, and I looked at a lot of rental properties, and there were literally thousands of units that had that had windows in the basements that did not exactly conform to the ordinance. We seriously could have a real housing crisis on our hands if the city manager's office enforces, as it says it will, the letter of the ordinance as of January 1st. And I mean, thousands of people could literally be evicted from their apartments. So I'd like to ask that you schedule this one, even if it's a brief discussion, even if it's on a night where you're discussing several topics, because I think this is very important to avert that sort of problem. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Glass. Appreciate you leaving us your comment. All right, any other members of the public wishing to speak to the council? Seeing none, I'll close public comment. Councilors, any future work session topics?
I just have a comment on one of the work sessions. To Mr. Glass's point, I would be happy with moving that forward. I think there certainly are some lower units that have large windows that people can get through. I've seen it a couple in my neighborhood. I have not seen thousands. But if there's some clarification, or if we can look back at that, I believe someone had mentioned at one point there was going to be a little bit of a leave some wiggle room for the city manager to kind of look at some of these windows and say, yes, this is, folks can get through this. I would just like some of that clarification before going into January, if there is, to kind of avoid some mess, if we can.
Thank you. Great. Seems like you council members, if possible, would like it to come that way.
I would agree. I agree. I'd like to see it moved up, especially since we do have that January deadline coming.
I'd encourage folks who have rentals to register your rental and have a conversation with the city.
Mayor, could I ask the city manager, Janine, is it possible to schedule something before the end of the year with the current council members?
Mayor, so the only work session you have available is December 10th. I do have some information to send to you after looking at this with staff, and I think it will inform whether you would want to schedule that work session December 10th or not. So I'll get that out tomorrow or Friday.
Thanks.
And register your rentals. Please.
I have a
Please.
question around rentals. It is not at all related to work sessions.
Sure.
Okay, sorry. If we know that a rental is not registered, can it be reported a person who does not live at that rental or the owner of the rental? How does that work?
We have received calls from folks indicating that a property is not on our licensed and registered list, in which case we've sent just letters out saying, hey, it was brought to our attention that your rental residential property is not licensed, and here's the code and the link to go fill out the application. So we've sent out courtesy letters to that effect, yes.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Richardson. I continue to think the city has done anything they can think of to make this as easy as possible for landlords. So thank you for that question. All right, councilors, anything else on the future work session topics? All right, Councilor Pierce, get us out of here.
Hey, thank you, Mayor. I move that we adjourn.
Second.
Motion by Pierce, second by Newman. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed say no. Council, we are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.